their containment areas north of the Waitaki River, but more just recently, over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, they've got across the Waitaki River and they're spreading in the country south of there. And they're in very low numbers, and because we don't know where they are, we need to survey large areas, and to do that cost effectively, we want a method we can do aerially, where all our current methods are ground-based. They're either trapping or detection devices or spotlight counting. So everything's done on the ground, and that's very expensive and time-consuming and restricted in terms of the area that you can cover in a day. Anything that's giving off heat we can detect. And initially we started this work, it was funded by Osprey to look at using thermal imaging for possums, but that was really pushing the limit because they're small animals and we had to fly at night when given that they're a nocturnal animal, and that's when they're out. Most other animals are out, particularly in early morning, which is a really good time to use thermal imaging cameras because your background is as cold as it gets during the 24-hour period.
We first became aware in 2008 of wallabies on the south bank, and since that time we've shot around 140. We find that shooting men and dogs has been primarily the most effective method. We have used helicopters, but generally wallabies at very low numbers, very low densities, are very hard to find in this chest-high tussock and grey scrub. So we put contractors through twice a year targeting wallabies within those areas. Environment Canterbury is still trying to eradicate those populations outside. We're using different methods, as I mentioned, shooting primarily in the high tussock grassland. If we know we've got a localised area, we used encapsulated cyanide ferrotox. The only other toxin registered for wallaby control is 1080 pellets, which is probably the most effective, cost-effective method of treating large areas for high wallaby numbers. The new tool that we're looking at with Landcare Research is the thermal imaging, and it's got huge advantages that potentially we see to find those very, very few wallabies in the high tussock country. And on that population in the south bank of the Waitaki, they're spread over 72,000 hectares, so that's a lot of dirt for guys to cover on foot with a pack of dogs. The thermal imaging potentially will find those individual animals, needle in a haystack material, and let us destroy them straight away without having to spend weeks and weeks and days with shooters and dogs and trying to flush these animals in the likelihood of getting a shot at them.
It certainly looks like it would be a very good tool. So if you're just looking at a hillside, unless they're jumping around and moving, you can't really spot them, whereas this will just guarantee that you're not missing them and you know if they're there. There's a huge contrast, they just stand out straight away, so it'll create the efficiency in a chopper. It'll double it by 10 times, if not 100. Having another tool like this can certainly reduce the reliance on 1080 and potentially be a lot more efficient and better way of controlling them, easier on the landscape really. Wallabies are such a problem. Firstly, every 3 wallabies eats the same amount of food as one ewe, and on top of that they're quite into native fauna as well, so they can chew out the native scrub up higher. They also foul up country, so having mustard in areas that do have quite a large wallaby problem, if wallabies are hanging out in one area, sheep won't go anywhere near it, and it'll cause the sheep to graze too hardly one area and not manage the block evenly and properly. Not a problem on this side of the river as such yet. They are a huge concern. There are low numbers popping up here and there, and ECAN are putting plenty of hours into trying to keep them under control. But yeah, the potential is, it's a good habitat around here for them, so they could certainly establish themselves and become quite a problem. We've really got to keep a lid on them, if not knock them right back.